Okay, we're going to start today the Chav Vav Amud Beis. We are in the middle of talking about the case of Egla Rufa. There's a certain type of calf that has to be brought when there's a mess mitzvah. And the din is about Egla Rufa, it cannot be worked. It can never have worked before. Question is, what if it worked without your intention? So that's what we're talking about. So we brought down from a pasuk that says in pasuk, Asher le ubad ba, that was never worked with. So we learned from that pasuk that even if the cow worked without your intention, you didn't make it work, but it worked without your intention, it's still possible. Says the Gemara, if it's still, we're just quoting from the last line, last Amud, if it works even without your intention, then it's possible. Why in the case that it worked without your intention completely, which we said last time, which it went into a field. You didn't put it inside the field in order for it to feed or you put it inside the field for storage, whatever it was, and it started working. So why in that case is it still kosher? If we learn it from the pasuk ubad, ubad means worked in any case it worked. It's possible. So why in the first case that we mentioned yesterday is it possible? So we're starting answering the Gemara in Chavav base. If you put inside the field, the beginning of the brayso that you put inside the field, not for working completely, you just put inside the field for storage, and it worked without against your attention. It's similar to a case that we have in the Mishnah that says Shachna Allah. It's similar that if a bird jumped onto its back, the thing is that's kosher, even though when the bird was on its back and it walked, it carried the bird, so the cow did malacha. But since you have no interest in the bird being on its back, so it's not kandas malacha. But but if a male cow started having relations together with your cow, even though you didn't put the cow there for it to breed together with other animals, so it's possible. So I think, obviously, what's the difference in both cases? What's the difference if a bird goes on its back without your intention? It's kosher. But if a cow breeds together with your calf, it's possible, even though you didn't have intention for it. What's the difference? So I'm gonna Papa. The Papa says a very interesting thing. Okay, so it says in pasuk Asher loy avad ubad ba. Okay, it says in pasuk Asher loy ubad ba. You have to get a cow that was never worked with. So the Papa says like this. I'm gonna Papa. Iksiv Asher. If it would have said in pasuk that a cow Asher loy avad ba, avad meaning ayin beis dalet, v'karin avad, and we would have read it avad. So then ad avad ba'iu, avad means you made it work. So then, if it would have said in pasuk a cow that you never worked it, so then it would only be possible if you worked it. If it did any sort of work without you working it, then it's kosher. On the other hand, iksiv ubad, if it would have said ubad means it was worked with. V'karin ubad, and we would have read it in the pasuk ubad. So I feel So now I would learn in the other direction that even if any circumstance that it worked without your intention, as long as it worked, it'll still be possible. And now that says in the Torah, what does it say in the Torah? It says in the Torah, avad with ayin beis dal. So asher loy avad, ayin beis dal, which avad means you made it work. On the other hand, the kri, the way we read this word, the way we read this word in the pasuk, isn't avad, it's ubad. So we learn that from here. Hasha d'chsiv avad. Now that it says in Torah avad, the karin on ubad, and the way you're supposed to read it is ubad. It's to teach us a very interesting thing. That what? That ubad dumya do avad, meaning the case that the cow, if a cow works unintentionally, it has to be similar to a case that you intentionally made it work. What does that mean? Ma avad the nechale, af ubad the nechale, just like when the cow works intentionally, it's working because you want it to work. So too, if the cow works unintentionally, if you have benefit from this work, so it's as if you made it work. On the other hand, so that's why in the case that the cow was breeding together with another cow, even though you never put it in the field to breed it for another cow, but at the end of the day, you have benefit from it, from breeding with another cow. On the other hand, in the case that they have a bird goes on the cow's back, even though the bird going on the cow's back, the cow's doing malacha, you have zero benefit from the bird going on the cow's back, and therefore it is still kosher. Okay, now we're going back. So that was that sugya. We explained a fundamental difference between what does intentional and unintentional mean. Intentional doesn't, in our case, our specific case, doing something intentional doesn't mean you did something intentional. It means that even if the cow did something by itself, if you would have had or you have any benefit, that is counted as intentional, and therefore the cow is possible. On the other hand, if the cow did malacha without you making it do malacha and you have zero benefit from that malacha, so then the cow is not counted as malacha and the cow is kosher. Says the Gemara like this: Tashrma, bring a raya from a brisa. Just to recap, yesterday we had a machlekes between Rava and Abaye. Rava said that we had a case of ef sheva kol mechaber. What does that mean? It means we had an argument in a case that someone has to be doing something, meaning he has to be going in a certain direction, and once he's going in a certain direction, so something came up on the way that's also by no. And so the question is, since if he's here anyway, there's no other option for him to go away. Can he have benefit from that, or can he not benefit? We're going to bring an example over here. Let's see over here. Tashma, it says in the Braisa like this: Aveda, if you find a jacket on the street, so what you do with the jacket? You should not spread out the jacket in your house. You have to obviously have a chiyuv b'Shabbos. You have to take the jacket home. But what you do with the jacket? So you should not spread out the jacket on the bed. And you shouldn't hang up the jacket or spread it out on beams. For your intention, meaning you cannot, if you want, now that you have a jacket, you have a nice sheet, and you want to use it as a blanket, or you want to use it as a nice curtain. So if you're hanging the object up for your benefit, you cannot do that because you're having benefit from something which is not yours. But if for whatever reason you have to spread it out for the need of the garment, for example, the garment shouldn't get dusty or the garment shouldn't get worn out, so then you're able to spread it out. Like meat on top of a bed, like magid on top of beams. Okay, so if you're spreading out the jacket for your need, it's usher. If you're spreading out the garment for its needs, meaning to keep the garment fresh, then it's mutter. What if you got a lot of guests? You have a lot of guests, and a lot of guests, you want to make your house look nice. So the din is, you could say like this: I anyway have to hang up this garment because I don't want to get it dusty. So when I have a lot of guests, I also want to hang up the garment for my house to look nice. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to hang the garment up for my need, and also to make the house look nice. Can I do that or not? The din is that it's also you cannot do that. The Chayr is a clear proof against Rabbi. Rabbi said that if you have a case that you have to do something, and while you're doing that action, a asadik thing comes up. I mean, you didn't have intention for that, but something asa comes up. So according to Rabbi, you could continue doing what you have to be doing. Let's say you're walking down the street and someone starts playing non-kosher music or whatever it is. You could just carry on walking, no problem. You don't have to avoid the situation. So in this case is a proof against Rabbi. Because we see clearly that even if you have to hang up the garment for the garment's need, which is a mutadika case, but if you're doing it also for your benefit, so it's possible. You can't have benefit from something which is not yours. It says the Gemara, no, don't bring a proof from there, because Shani Hasam, the case of a garment is different. The Kalila, because when you hang up the garment in front of your guest, so it's true that you're hanging the garment up also, so the garment should be fresh, but you're also damaging the garment. Why? Because either you're damaging the garment through iron hara, meaning now you have a lot of guests and they're going to see your garment, it's going to make iron hara in the garment, so therefore you're hanging the garment up for the garment's benefit, but at the same time you're also damaging the garment. Or maybe the garment's going to get stolen, and therefore, even though you think you're hanging up for your benefit, at the end of the day, it could harm the garment, and therefore it's possible. And therefore, you cannot hang up the garment. Said the Gemara continues on this sugya. Toshama, bringing a brisa that says like this: someone sells garments which are kilayim, meaning they have wool and linen mixed up together. Then is you could sell the wool and linen, but you cannot wear wool and linen. So how are you supposed to sell? How are you supposed to demonstrate your garments? Yeah, in those days, they didn't have the dolls or whatever these things that the clothes shops have to demonstrate the garments. So the din is they're able to wear. Yeah, the clothes merchants are able to wear the garments, or to wear the garments in order to demonstrate them, even though it's kilayim or as long as in the winter you shouldn't have any kavanah that it should guard you. These garments should shield you from the wind, from the rain. And so in the summer, you shouldn't have intention that the garment should give you shade from the sun. So what do we see from here? We see from here that that the case is that to sell garments, you're able to sell them even though you haven't benefit from something which is asr. Your intention is not to have benefit from it. Your intention is to sell them, and therefore it's okay. Hatznuin, vatznuin, meaning the people who are extra frum. Mafshilin lachrein b'makel, they don't wear, when they sell the garments, they don't wear the garments. They will put a stick and hang the garment up on a stick, and that's how they will sell the garments. Says the Gemara, why is there a heter for everyone to sell the garments while wearing them if you're able to put on the stick? So that's what you should do. If you're able to do something which is asr, and you're able to do something which is mutter, you're able to wear the garments, which is wearing the garments is asr, and you're able to wear them on a stick, which is mutter. So why is there a heter to wear the garments on your body if you could put them on a stick? And we still see that since you're not having intention, you're able to wear the garments to sell them. So tiyufta, the masni lishno kamad Rabbi. This is a clear proof against the Rabbi, which we learned yesterday. Tiyufta, it's tiyufta. So just to get the idea, we just brought a very strong idea over here that I'm not getting to Allah but the Gemara says a very extreme idea that if you're doing something which is asr, 100% asr, you're wearing a garment which is now kilayim, and that garment is 100% asr to wear. If you're going to wear it just with a small mindset to have benefit from this, from the should guard you from the rain, and that's going to be 100% asr. The Brayz is machadish that since you the Brayz is machadish, since you're not having kavanah, even though you're able to do it in another way, but even though you're able to put it on the stick, doesn't matter. If you're doing something which is asr and you're not having kavanah to do it, then it's mutter, which is a contradiction to what we said according to Rabbi, which Rabbi said that will be awesome. Okay, second that, yeah. So there's a lot of examples of this din. I said example before, someone walking down the street and something in that sneeze pops up, whatever it is. So he doesn't have to, according to this shit at least, he doesn't have to avoid that way. If he's on that way anyway, he can continue going, just not have kavanah to have benefit from it. According to other shit is you have a chiyuv to get away from any smell, any connection to Israel as much as possible. Okay, now the Gemara is going all the way back to the Mishnah. So Honu Sugya, Mishnah said that you cannot take chametz and use it as firewood for your oven. Why? Because since the chametz is asbar no, so you cannot use chametz to use it as firewood for your oven. Even though while you're using it for firewood, you are burning the chametz. Doesn't matter since you're having benefit from it, so you cannot do it. Tanur Rabbanan, we learn a brayz like this. Tanur, if you have a clay oven, which you used it, you fired it up, you got it hot together with klipa arla. You used as firewood, you used peels of arla, and we all know arla is asbar no. The first three is asbar no. Or you used it, you used to heat it up, the stalks of grapes from kilayim, which is also asr. So what's the din? Chadash, if it was a new oven, meaning that you never used the oven, this is your first time using the oven. So yutatz, you have no other option than breaking this oven and rebuilding it. Why? We're going to see soon. Because the idea is that the first fire in the new oven is what makes the oven, it strengthens the walls of the oven. And since the oven got strengthened and is basically built through a fire that was made by something which is asr no, therefore now the whole oven becomes asr no, according to Rabbi. But yashan, if it's an old oven, meaning it's an oven you have for 25 years already, you just stoked it, you just used it once with non-kosher firewood. So yutzan, in order to cook in it, what you have to do is you have to make sure it gets cold 100%. Once it gets cold 100%, you're able to re-fire it with kosher wood, and then it would be kosher. What if afaba pas, meaning you never made it, a third case, you never waited till it gets cold, or if it's an old oven, a new oven, you never broke the oven, you baked bread inside. So now this bread was baked by fire, which is made by an oven, or by fire, which is from non-kosher wood. So that's machlekes Rabbi and Chacham. Rabbi says hapas asur, the bread is asur, and the idea why Rabbi says the pas is asur, we're going to see in the Gemara soon, because Rabbi holds that bread that was baked in a oven, a wood oven, and the wood was asur. So now it's called yesh shavach eitzim b'pas. Rabbi holds that when you bake bread inside the oven, so the wood goes into the wood, depending on what type of wood it is, has a huge effect on the type of how your bread is going to be baked. And therefore, since your bread is directly having benefit from the wood, and the wood is asur, so that bread now becomes asur. So according to Rabbi, that we don't really look at bread as it was baked in the oven, but the bread now gets the status of the wood itself. The Chacham say no, hapas muteres. The bread is muter. So even though the bread was baked in a non-kosher, in an oven that was made by non-kosher or thing which are asur to use, the wood is asur to use, according to Rabbanan say no. What do you mean? You just used it in a surrounding that was asur, but the actual bread, the wood never went into the bread, or the wood doesn't have any direct effect on the bread. The fire does, but the wood doesn't have direct effect on the bread, and therefore, according to Rabbanan, it's mutter. What if bishla? Third case, bishla agabi gechanim. What if you cook the bread on coals which are asban? Let's say you have coals of let's say you have a wood which is you cooked it directly, you didn't put it in the oven, you cook it directly inside on the coals. Mutter. Everyone agrees that it's mutter to eat, because we're going to see soon by coals. By coals, everyone agrees that the way coals work is that the heat comes out the coals, and the heat is mutter b'anah. Yeah, the isser is only inside the wood. Once the wood gets burnt, it turns into complete coal. So then, what's coming out? The heat. The heat's coming out of a piece of the isser already finished, terminated already, and therefore it's mutter. Okay, so that's what we have. Machlekes Rabbi and Chacham. Rabbi says that if you cook the bread is asur, and Chacham say if you cook the bread is mutter. Says the Gemara asked straight away about Tanya. It's a bit sidetracked, but the Gemara asked straight about Tanya. We said in our brisa that if it's a new oven, you have to destroy it, and if it's an old oven, you have to wait till it gets cold. We have in a brisa says a different day. But Tanya, we learn a brisa contradicting day, and it says bein chadash, bein yashan yutzan. Any type of oven, say if it's an old oven or say if it's a new oven, you don't have to break it. You just have to make sure it gets cold. So this contradicts the previous brisa, which the previous brisa said if it's an old oven, you have to get rid of it. And if it's a new oven, you have to get rid of it. And if it's an old oven, you can use it. And this brisa said that say old oven, say new oven, you can both use it. So it's not a contradiction. Rabbi, very simple. The first brisa that said by an old oven by a new oven you have to destroy it. And by an old oven you have to wait till it gets cold goes according to Rabbi. Which Rabbi held, that same Rabbi held that if you bake bread inside the oven, then the bread is asur. Why? Because Rabbi holds that is the idea we said before, yesh shavach eitzim b'pas, that the wood and the oven has a huge effect on the bread. So therefore, according to Rabbi, if the oven is a new oven, so since the new oven was founded by isur, then you have to break it, and the oven has a huge effect on the bread, so you have to break the oven. The second, the brisa, so that's why Rabbi said to break the oven. But the second brisa goes according to Rabban. The second brisa says that beside new oven, beside old oven, you could use. Goes according to Rabban. Rabban hold that if you bake bread in a non-kosher oven, it's kosher. Why? Because the wood doesn't go into the bread, and therefore, if the wood doesn't go into the bread, so even though your oven was founded by isur, by wood which is asur, it doesn't matter because the wood doesn't go into the oven, doesn't make the wood doesn't go into the walls of the oven, whatever you want to call it, and therefore the oven didn't become 100% asur. Okay, that was a machlekes Rabbi and Rabban. The idea is, does the wood, meaning do we make a connection between the wood that's in the oven and the oven? Do we say that the wood goes into the bread or the wood goes into the oven? Or do we say that wood is only I don't know to explain it exactly. The wood is only a middle way to get to fire. And once you have the fire is the one that's having an effect on the oven, not so much the wood. Says thinking about it, aim of the Shammos the Rabbi. When do we have this argument according to Rabbi? That Rabbi said that you cannot use bread that was baked by non-kosher wood. Is the reason we said that? The reason we said for that is mishum the yesh shavach eitzim b'pas, because there's direct benefit from the wood which goes into the bread, and therefore if the wood is asur, so the bread also becomes asur. But so that's all assuming That's his reasoning. But Zeb is that great Shamatlay. But do we learn out from his thing, from Rabbi's din, a din of Zeb Zeh Greidim? Just make a short introduction. Something called Zeb Zeh Greidim. Zeb Zeh Greidim means if I have a kosher thing and a non-kosher thing, and they both join together to cause a third action, right? For example, in our case, you have an oven, let's say an old oven. So the oven is kosher, yeah? The oven is kosher, and you use non-kosher wood inside the oven. Okay, so there's two things, and then you put bread inside. There's two things causing this bread to cook. The first thing is causing the kosher wood, non-kosher wood, and the second thing which is causing is a kosher oven. Or even if you have two types of wood together, let's say. So according to Rabbi, so that's called Zeb Zeh Greidim. Zeb, both if I have kosher, something which is kosher, and Zeh, and something which is non-kosher, Greidim, causing a third act, causing the bread to bake. Do we say that since the bake was cooked by a bit of a non-kosher object, do we say that the bread is not kosher? Or do we say no, since the bread was also joined together by kosher wood or kosher oven, so the bread is mutter? So the question is, does Rabbi hold of this concept or not? Because since Rabbi said that if you cook bread in this oven, it's also l'chayra. There's two actions, two things that are needed over here to cook the bread. There's a kosher aspect and a non-kosher aspect. So why does Rabbi say that? In other words, can we learn that from here? Rabbi's opinion that Zeb Zeh Greidim is us. Says the Gemara, answer the Gemara. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbana. The Gemara says no, it's not a question. One brayso goes according to Rabbi Lezer, and one brayso goes according to Rabban. We're going to expand on this soon. But in other words, the brayso that says that an old oven cannot be used goes according to Rabbi Lezer. What is Rabbi Lezer? We're going to explain Rabbi Lezer's opinion now. Tomorrow we're going to explain much more. We're just going to see the opinion of Rabbi Lezer. What is Rabbi Lezer's opinion? Rabbi Lezer says, "Hi, Rabbi Lezer. Which Rabbi Lezer? Who's Rabbi Lezer? Rabbi Lezer this. If you're going to tell me Rabbi Lezer of this, what does that mean? We're going to explain in a second. That now I'm learning the Mishnah. If you have leaven of cholin, if you have leaven of tuma, which they fell into a dough. Yeah, leaven means there's certain, it's like yeast basically. It's certain things that make bread rise. So what if you have a leaven of cholin, or like in the nowadays you have sourdough starter. So you have a leaven of cholin and you have a leaven of truma, and they both fell into a piece of dough. The leaven of truma doesn't have enough in it to make the bread rise by itself, and the leaven of cholin doesn't have enough power in it to make the bread rise by itself. And they both fell together, and when they both fell together, they made the bread rise. What's the din? It started for the bread now rose. Do we say that since the bread rose because it has a bit of truma inside of it, it's also? Do we say no? That since the truma didn't have enough by itself to make the bread rise and it joined together with cholin, so therefore the bread is mutter. So the din is, Rabbi Lezer says, I look at the last thing that fell in, meaning depends what fell in first. If the first thing that fell in was truma and the second thing that fell in was cholin, so the bread is cholin. But if the first thing that fell in was cholin and the second leaven that fell in was truma, so we look at after the last one. That's Rabbi Lezer's opinion. Chachamim say, Bein shenafal isur, bein shenafal isur lechatchila, bein shenafal isur b'seif. And Chachamim say that doesn't make a difference. Never do we never say that this bread is asur. Why? Because it doesn't. We don't care which thing fell in first. all of the times that it falls in, even if it's truma fell first or the chametz fell or the cholin fell in first, it's always going to be mutter. Why? Because the chametz hold that Zeb Zeh Greidim is mutter. If I have two things that cause one thing to happen, but they cause it both together, it's mutter. Okay, we're going to stop over here. We're holding the middle of the sugya. We're going to stop over here of the Chavav Amud Aleph, and we'll continue tomorrow. Have a good night.